A migrant caravan of thousands is headed toward the United States. Some are already here. What should we do? Should America continue down the path to globalization and the New World Order, or fling our borders wide open, or reverse our course and reclaim our national sovereignty? Well, we'll discuss the answer to this question on today's edition of End of the Age. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dave Robbins with Endtime Ministries. Thank you for joining me on Tuesday's edition of End of the Age. So that's the question today. Should America continue down the path to globalization and the New World Order and fling our borders wide open? Because we've got this caravan coming up here. Many of them are already here. But there's more to it than just the caravan. There's the big picture. What about globalization? What should America do in this situation? Because we're going to be pressed on this issue because there are a lot of people here in America that would like to have open borders. So we'll discuss this and the prophetic significance of it as we go throughout the program today. I was recently in Israel just a couple of weeks ago, and Edo Keenan is our guide there. And he is an ex-Navy SEAL for the Israeli Defense Forces. He's got all kinds of great military stories and things like that. He was in the 73 Yom Kippur War. It's when he first went into the Navy. And so I've heard a lot of his stories about what happened during the war and different things. But one of the things he is very keen on is Israel's security. And he has told me about the wall. When we go out of Israel and we go to visit Bethlehem, which is out in the West Bank, you have to go through Israel's border wall that they have built. You pull up to this huge concrete wall, a security wall, and you get approval to go through there, and then you can go into Bethlehem. Well, Edo was telling our bus that since they built the wall and built the fence and different things, that they have had 0 suicide bombers since then. And it's a very true statement because Mike Huckabee agreed with him when he said that the suicide bombings went from 1,000 per year to 0 per year once Israel put their fence up. And so Israel put up a controlled fence, not only just for that, for the terrorist faction and the wall, but it cut their illegal immigration by 99%. So think about that in our situation here. I was thinking about that when Edo was telling me this story, and I thought, man, what if we could do that here in the United States? Looking at the situation on our southern border, I'm sitting here in Dallas today, looking at what's going on just south of us here, maybe, I don't know, it's like 8 or 9 or 10 hours south. And the border wall, the fence that Donald Trump's wanting to build. And looking at the big picture of all of this, because we're sitting here in Texas knowing that these people are coming up this migrant caravan. And so we're wondering, hey, what should we do? I mean, it's different for us here in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, than for people living, let's say, in Maine. And so we're looking at the situation here saying, what should we do? What's going on here? Well, I like to look at the big picture. Obviously, here at Endtime, we specialize in the prophecies of the Bible. What's the significance of all of this? And so I have some questions to ask today and some topics that I want to cover. And in looking at this big picture-wise, you look at any nation. A lot of people like to zero it right down to the wall, but you've got to look at the nation as a whole. Any nation who is a nation at all must protect its borders. Without borders, There's no such thing as a nation. It's just free for all. Anybody come in, terrorist factions. I mean, the MS-13 gangs, people wanting to destroy the country. You say, well, Dave, hold on a minute. Not everybody wanting to come in is wanting to destroy the country. I totally agree with you. But people coming in with a sincere goal, they would come in legally. They would come in, hey, I want to come to the United States to better my family, this, that, and the other. Then they'll apply legally and they'll come in. But people that want to come in, rush the border at night or whatever, and just come into this country, they kind of have a sinister goal in mind. I mean, think about it. I wouldn't come through the ports of entry if I wanted to come in illegally. And so you really got to step back and look big picture this thing. What's really going on? So let's talk about America. Mike Pence made this statement recently in an interview concerning this migrant caravan. He said, we have 1,000 people trying to come into our country illegally every single day. And he said this caravan was organized by leftist groups in Honduras. I tell you what, I'm going to hold right here because I want you to hear this quote by Mike Pence in this interview. And so we're talking about the migrant caravan and how it has to deal with the process of globalization, world government, and prophetic significance. And so join me when we come back. I'll go through this quote from Mike Pence, and then we'll take off into the prophetic significance of this issue.
Many Christians admit end-time Bible prophecy is very complex and difficult to understand, and for some, a little bit scary. But what if you could understand Bible prophecy? What if you could know what will happen and how the United States will play a key role during end-time events? When you call today and get Understanding the End Time DVD curriculum, you can have peace about what is to come while understanding the prophetic events that appear in our headlines every day. When you call or go online to endtime.com and order, you'll learn the answer to the biggest prophecy question of all. Will the rapture take place, and when will it happen? This 14-part DVD series is the definitive end-time prophecy Bible study available. And for this limited time, you can get it for just $149. Don't miss this special offer. Understanding the End Time. Call now. 1-800-363-8463. That's 1-800-END-TIME. Or go to endtime.com today.
I have left a piece of my heart in Israel and her people. We would like to thank Endtime for doing such an awesome job with our Israel tour. We marvel at your team keeping the time schedule, keeping everyone comfortable, the wonderful driver, the brilliant guide, the entire tour program, good hotel choices, and stellar food. We had the privilege to rub shoulders with Pastor Baxter, listen to his current teachings, and had some interesting questions answered so eloquently. He is wonderful. Helene from Australia.
Join Irvin and Judy Baxter May 2nd through the 17th, 2019 for the ultimate Israel tour experience with a Greek island cruise. Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 to sign up today.
So Mike Pence said that we have 1,000 people trying to come into this country illegally every day. He went on to say that this caravan, this migrant caravan that's coming up from the south, was organized by leftist groups in Honduras and was financed in part by Venezuela. And he said that was according to the president of Honduras, which told him those things personally. He said they were sent north for the sole and exclusive reason of challenging the laws of the United States of America by coming to our country illegally. And folks, these are not some random group of asylum seekers. Fox News reported that Homeland Security claimed that the migrant caravan, which has already reached the U.S. border, is harboring more than 500 criminals. They claim the group is mostly made up of single adult teen or teen males, and that the women or children have been pushed to the front of the line in a bid to garner a sympathetic media coverage. When you see them standing at the fence trying to get through, it's women and children, and you get sympathetic and you think, well, we've got to let them across. But that's not really the scenario that's going on here. There's criminals and a very criminal faction, gangs and things interwoven in these things. They found people in this caravan from other countries coming, trying to get into America through this caravan. And it was all pre-planned and funded. And then Newsweek made a very telling statement. Newsweek said, if this present surge of unvetted persons accesses the United States, hundreds of thousands of future migrants will know that the United States borders are open and the country is without sovereignty. So there's a big picture here, though, because I mean, I know we could get caught up in the migrant caravan, and I'm concerned about that as well. And those are people. And I'm not saying I don't love those people or don't want them here in America. If they all wanted to come in legally and be vetted in our vetting system, fine. But the illegal ones, the MS-13, the gang members, all that faction can't do that. We don't have a country if we don't know who we're letting in here, if we're not protecting our borders. So let's boil it down to its essence and look at it from a big picture standpoint. You know, folks, the external borders and national sovereignty, they are inextricably linked together. You don't have national sovereignty unless you can protect your borders. Borders are the front line of defense to a secured nation. Until there is a fail-proof method to determine who is entering the country with evil intentions, border control is vital to the survival of this nation. And unlike oppressive nations that use borders to imprison their citizens and impose a harsh existence, America must use her borders to keep our individuals intending harm to her citizens and their way of life. We've got to keep them out. And, you know, America's founding fathers were visionaries who had experienced life under an oppressive government. And when addressing immigration and border control in the early years of our republic, they welcomed those who embraced self-government, freedom, and opportunity. And at the same time, though, the founders were very well aware that uncontrolled immigration and the failure to assimilate would endanger the America that they envisioned originally. And America has liberal and fair immigration policies for those entering the country legally. Part of the naturalization process includes the studying of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, learning America's history, taking a citizenship test, and pledging allegiance to America's flag and the republic for which it stands, very important, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. Some people come in and that's not their goal, folks. It's to implement their religion and their God. You say, well, this is a nation for all religions and all people and this, that, and the other. Well, I mean, originally, we were founded as a Judeo-Christian nation. I mean, let's just be honest. That's what our forefathers envisioned. That's the way this country was set up. And so you wouldn't go back. Some of these people who want to come in and implement their religion here in the United States, imagine trying to go over to the country that they came from and implement Christianity. You might be thrown in jail or put in prison or worse. So think about that when we're thinking about the dynamics of all of this. We want a Judeo-Christian nation. And, you know, the pledge to the republic, it encompasses loyalty to the fundamental principles that formed this nation, Judeo-Christian values, based upon the Bible, not any other book, but based upon the Bible. And, you know, over the past several decades, the federal government has not enforced external border control and immigration policies. There have been millions of people that have been allowed just to come into the country. And as a result, the homeland, our homeland, is at risk for people entering intent on doing harm. We've seen that. It's been in the news. I mean, you can read about it all. It's all over reputable news sites. And drug cartels, they're exploiting the unsecured borders by trafficking people, weapons, and illegal drugs. I'm not talking about in South America. I'm talking about our border, 10 hours south of me, sitting here in Dallas. And many in the illegal alien population, they refuse to learn English or pledge their allegiance to America. And instead, they brandish the flag of their own homeland, which this migrant caravan is doing, and they burn the American flag. I scratch my head why we would want them here in America, honestly. And they ignore the very notion of assimilation. The Statue of Liberty echoes the sentiments of the founders. She lifts the lamp high and invites the tired, the poor, the huddled masses yearning to breathe free, but not the freeloaders, the usurpers, and especially not terrorists and those wanting to do harm to our country or to our republic. So, the big picture here, something we have to consider in thinking about this, because I'm a minister, and I don't want to seem like I have no heart here, because I do have a heart. I would love to minister to these people. And but I've found over the years in ministry that you can help people who have a sincere heart, but somebody whose heart is hardened and not sincere, you can talk till you're blue in the face and they'll just turn you off. And so when I look at these people coming in and that want to come in legally, we could help them. They could come into this country and assimilate themselves to our culture and pledge allegiance to the Republic, one nation under God, the God of the Bible, and come into this country, and we could help them. They could prosper like nobody else really on the planet. But people with an unsincere heart who are coming here to do evil and have a hardened heart and you can't reach them, I mean, honestly, do you want them in our country? And some people would say, but Dave, I know, but you've got a hardened heart there towards those individuals. Well, let me ask you a question. If they come across our border tonight, would you invite them to stay at your house? No, you wouldn't. Because that's why you lock your doors at night. Even though I'm a Christian, I'm not going to invite evil into my home. I might try to help it somewhere, but I'm not going to invite it into my home. And we're talking about our country here, folks. But there are people who do not care about our country, about our republic. They do not care about Judeo-Christian values. I mean, that are already here in the country. Globalists, people in our government. All they care about is a system of world government and of a socialistic world government. So they really don't care about the borders. They don't care if people from all over the world come in. They could care less. Or whether they are terrorists or anything. Believe it or not, there are people that are like that here in America. They don't want to protect our Judeo-Christian values. They could care less about that. So the big picture here, what's really going on? This migrant caravan is a small faction of it. We're talking about globalization, world government. And to define it really, globalism is simply the belief that the nation state, which we're trying to protect here with borders, or at least some of us are, is that the nation state is obsolete. That's what a globalist believes. This nation states around the world are obsolete. We need to have open borders, and that the world must move into a system of global governance. Now, this is where we're coming into the prophecy aspect of it. And really clearly stated, globalists believe national borders should be dissolved and a one world government should be implemented. We should do away with the nation state and have a global state that answers to a world government. That's their goal. So they really don't care about the citizens. They're just trying to push their agenda. They don't care if MS-13 comes into this country. They don't care about the drugs flowing into this country, the illegal human trafficking, and the selling of children and different things. They don't care about borders. They're concerned about their own agenda of a world government. And this is what's going on in the world. This is real world, folks. I've got documentation, stacks of it for all of this. Globalization is the interdependence of nations and their citizens without equal right or of self-determination and exclusive control over the people's control over their economy, the people or their policies. Its goal is to create a global free market of goods and services. And globalization rejects the ideals of nationalism. You've heard Emmanuel Macron hammering Donald Trump for his ideology on nationalism or America first. Well, you're seeing globalization rise on one side and the move away from globalization on the other side, i.e. Donald Trump, the United States. And it rejects the ideas of nationalism and national sovereignty in favor of open borders. The theory behind globalization is that a borderless society would promote lower prices for goods and a fair allocation of the internet of inherent wealth of all nations. And proponents interchange terms such as the one world government, international community, you've all heard this, and a global citizen. And they make globalization sound all good and humanitarian, but the fact is, does globalization bring risk and unintended consequences? Absolutely. Will it eventually evolve into another vast empire and a kingdom that will enslave its citizens? Absolutely. That's exactly what the Bible prophesies is going to happen. And so we're looking at a world government being established, and then Mike Pence saying that this, and one of the battles between Trump and the international community, besides those that want to have a world government, globalist here in America, i.e. Hillary Clinton, Obama, many of them, John Kerry, all of them, they're all globalists. The Council on Foreign Relations, the Federal Reserve, the Brookings Institute, all of these are globalist bodies, if you will. And they're looking here in America and saying, hey, we want open borders. We don't want this. And Donald Trump's been fighting against them. If you understand what's happened during the first 2 years of his presidency, he came out prior to being elected and hammering globalization. He was against globalization. And we were sitting there going, oh my God, I can't believe this. And so it was pretty awesome to see that. To see an American president that would stand up in the face of the international community and say, we don't want anything to do that, because we don't want anything to do with it. They're trying to suck us into this world governing body. And that's something that God is coming back to destroy and set up His government here on the earth. So let's talk about what's really going on here in the world and efforts to establish a world government. And I'm going to be talking about migration. We're talking about this pre-planned migrant caravan that's coming up from the south. Well, that's not going to be the last one. They're going to try the United States time and again because we're the last bastion of freedom on the planet. And so what they've done is they've tried to have a global migration pact and to get everybody to sign on to it. Now, the Obama administration, they did sign us into it. And we signed into the Sustainable Development Goals, a global migration pact, And the Trump administration pulled us out of that. I'm talking about it here in a minute. But today in the news, the Times of Israel reported that Netanyahu said Israel's not going to sign on to that global migration pact because he knows they're being sucked into the United Nations could dictate who could come into Israel. And he said, we're not going to do that. He said, we've got to protect our borders. Netanyahu announced today that Israel's not going to be joining the United Nations Global Migration Pact, set to be signed next month in Morocco by most of the world's governments. And the U.S. is among several other countries that have also rejected that pact. Netanyahu said, we have a duty to protect our borders against illegal infiltrators. And that's what we've done. He said, that's what we are going to continue to do. And back in September of 2016, all 193 UN member states, including the United States under Obama, adopted a declaration saying that no country can manage international migration on its own, and agreed to launch a process leading to the adoption of a global compact in 2018, which is fixing to be signed. But Netanyahu is not alone in rejecting that new pact. Also, the United States was involved in that. Now, I'm going to be talking about that. So when here in just a moment, because I know I'm coming up to a break and I don't want to get off into it and then cut it right off. So I would mention to everyone that is that's listening or watching online. If you're watching online, you're already there. But to everyone that's just listening and you're not going to get the full hour, go to endtime.com to watch watch or listen to the archived program today, because I've got a lot to talk about. We're going to get off into a lot of prophecy and a lot of globalization in the latter half of the program. And we're going to talk about the Trump administration pulling us out of this global compact. Because what's it do? It allows the United Nations to dictate who gets to migrate into our country. And we don't want any part of that because they're sucking us into that world governing body. Donald Trump is pulling us out of that. So it's a very good thing. And so we'll talk about it when we get back from the break.
Move Mountains with Irvin Baxter, the new book by Irvin's grandson, provides 30 days of devotion that will enhance your connection to God and others. Authentic illustrations from early morning devotions at Endtime will help you find your purpose and eliminate fears. Commit to taking this 30-day journey and experience real-life change. Order this brand new book for only $14.99. Call 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com/move.
If ever people needed to hear the unvarnished truth, it is now. There are some subjects that are not politically correct to talk about, but they're urgent. That's why I'm grateful for Endtime magazine. If you're not a subscriber, you're missing information that will impact your life. Endtime has a bi-monthly magazine that explains how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. You can get a 2-year subscription for only $29. You can also get a bulk subscription and pass them out to your church. We have gotten reports that Endtime magazine has caused spiritual awakenings in churches when they see the prophecies being fulfilled right now. You can start your own ministry and leave them in doctor's offices, libraries, laundromats. You never know if you might be responsible for saving someone who is searching for the unvarnished truth. That's what the magazine has done in many lives. Call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and get your subscription today.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archive button.
So I'm thankful to announce that the Trump administration withdrew the United States from the global compact on migration that the Obama administration had signed us on to in September of 2016. And I hope you understand the ramifications of that. Eventually, the United States was wanting to dictate through the Sustainable Development Goals and different things, and if I have chance, I'll get to that today, They wanted to have a global governance of migration of people on the planet. And the nation states would have nothing to say about it. And we were getting to that point. But yet, the Trump administration looked at that and said, no, it's not going to happen, and pulled us out of that. And so, let me give you a little background here. So, Strobe Talbot, he was president of the Brookings Institution from 2002 to 2017. He was a former Deputy Secretary of State for the Clinton administration. He stated it really very clearly in his article, The Birth of a Global Nation. If you've never read that article, you would do yourself a great service to go read The Birth of the Global Nation by Strobe Talbot. It was in Time magazine, July 20, 1992. It's online. Just look it up. The Birth of a Global Nation. He made this statement. He said, in the next century, nationhood, or the nation state as we know it, is going to be obsolete. All states will recognize a single global authority. So that really sums it up. That's the goal of every globalist, along with the United Nations. So think about that. There are people here in the United States that believe the nation state is obsolete. The United States is a nation state. And there are people that believe here that are very high up that believe our nation state is obsolete and we should yield up our sovereignty, dissolve our borders, yield up our sovereignty to a one world governing body. And there are people that have pushed that agenda for years, for decades now. And the removal of national borders and the creation of a single global community which answers to a world government. Now that's what the Bible says is going to happen in the end time. Obviously, and if I've got time, I'll prove it, the United States, we believe, is not going to be part of that. And so, if you think about it though, on the global scale, in order for that to happen, nations will need to throw open their borders. And that's exactly what the United Nations is pressing for. So consider the United Nations Global Compact for Migration, or GCM. According to the United Nations, their own website, the Global Compact is a significant opportunity to improve the governance on migration. So they're planning on managing the migration of the population of the planet to address the challenges associated with today's migration and to strengthen the contribution of migrants and migration to sustainable development. And if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, goal number 10 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is to reduce inequality within and among countries. And then target number 7 of goal 10 is to facilitate orderly, safe, regular, and responsible migration and mobility of people, including through the implementation of planned and well-managed migration policies. So they know the migration is going to happen. They're talking about the global governance of that to equally spread out the population around the planet for the purposes of sustainable development, which is world government, global governance. And essentially, the UN wants to even out the inequalities among countries through the movement of people around the world in an orderly fashion. And it's a necessary step to the implementation of global socialism. Andrew Arthur, who serves as the resident fellow in law and policy for the Center for Immigration Studies, he described it like this. He said, and I'm quoting, were the United States to continue in the GCM, the Global Compact on Migration, and were that compact to push to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, the United States would essentially have to implement a total open border policy to even make a dent in the inequality among nations. So, and that's it's telling you plain and simple what's going on. It's global governance of the migration of people in an orderly fashion around the world. Just like the Paris Climate Agreement, the Global Compact on Migration is to be used to implement the global management system, Sustainable Development Goals. It's a blueprint by the United Nations for the global governance of the entire planet. And that's why the United States decided under the Trump administration, the Obama administration signed us on to that, yielding up our sovereignty in great increments to the United Nations. The Trump administration they decided to they ended the participation in the UN process to develop this global compact on migration. So, once the Trump administration recognized more global governing restrictions on the United States, they simply withdrew from the GCM. On December 3rd, 2017, the Secretary of State then, Rex Tillerson, made this statement. He said negotiations on the GCM will be based on the New York Declaration, which was a document adopted by the UN in 2016 that commits to strengthening global governance and contains a number of policy goals that are inconsistent with the U.S. law and policy. He said, while we continue to engage on a number of fronts at the United Nations, in this case, we simply can't in good faith support a process that could undermine the sovereign right of the United States to enforce our own immigration laws and secure our borders, not the United Nations, but our own. We signed a Declaration of Independence, not interdependence. And so the United States supports international cooperation on migration issues, but it is the primary responsibility of sovereign states, the nation state, to help ensure the migration is safe, orderly, and, this is of utmost importance, everyone, legal. Not, let's just throw our borders open and let whosoever will come in. There would be no more United States of America like we know it in just a few years if we allowed that to happen. Then the United States ambassador to the United Nations, obviously, Nikki Haley, she added that our decisions on immigration policies must always be made by Americans and Americans alone. She said, we will decide how best to control our borders and who will be allowed into our country. So the United States, we just pulled out of it, which is a very good thing. I'm thankful that a lot of this stuff is going on. Don't agree with everything, but when we're pulling out of the United Nations and these global agreements, I'm all about that. Because we signed a Declaration of Independence, and our forefathers based this country on Judeo-Christian values. And you say, were they perfect men? No. But they did base this country on Judeo-Christian values, and you wonder why we have went from, in the last, 240 plus years to the richest, most prosperous nation on the planet? It's because we put the Bible as our foundational principles. Many of our laws are based upon Scripture. And so God has blessed us. We've stood with Israel. We've blessed Israel. God's blessed us. And I don't want anti-Israeli people in our government that say we're not going to stand with Israel, we're going to boycott them, because I don't want God boycotting the United States of America. And so it's very important that when we allow people to come in, that they assimilate themselves to our Judeo-Christian values. You say, well, that's never going to happen. Well, I can hope for the best, and I can pray to that end, because I don't want people coming in here tearing that down. I want them, that's if I decided I'm going to pick up and move to Iran today, they're not going to allow me to come in there and be in their government and preach Christian principles. It's not going to happen. And so, you know what? I'm not going to live in Iran unless God called me there as a missionary. But at the end of the day, if you're going to come to America, we believe in the one God of the Bible. And that's what we're standing on, folks. Judeo-Christian principles. Here at Endtime Ministries, this is a Christian entity. We believe in adhering to the Word of God, the Bible. Never going to change that. And so it's important that we live in a country based on Judeo-Christian values and principles and things like that. We don't want to allow people to come in here and take us away from that. And we are a Christian nation. And I'm very proud of that. I'm thankful to say that. And so I always want to stick to that at the end of the day. I mean, if I want an opportunity to make it to heaven, I got to stick with that. Can't veer off of that. I am a Christian fundamentalist. I believe in the adherence and practicing the principles set forth in the Word of God, period. Not veering off of that. I believe the Bible teaches there's one God. I believe in one God. The Bible says to worship that one God. I worship that one God. The Bible says there's one Lord, one faith, one baptism. I believe that. Not going to veer off of that. And I want to live in a country that has those principles. And so that's what we're going with. So, you got to protect your borders. You have a nation that was based on Judeo-Christian values. Everybody wants to come in here with a sincere heart. You say, well, I don't believe this should be a nation for all religions and this, that, and the other. Well, I don't know about that. I wish everybody was a Christian. I'm just going to be honest with you. That's my opinion. And I believe that God is on my side with that. I mean, Jesus Christ came to earth to convert people to His way of teaching. He didn't come to say everybody's okay. He came to say, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. Except you believe on me, you'll die in your sins. That was Jesus. And so you say, that's a pretty bold statement. I love everyone. But we've got to teach the truth at the end of the day. And so, that's just the way I feel about it. And this is America. And I believe in, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under the true God of the Bible, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And so that's what we're basing everything off of, folks. The Bible, the one God of the Bible. And so when we look at the same Bible prophesies a world government coming. And so that's what we're talking about today. Globalization, the migrant caravan coming, that's just a small fraction of the big picture of what's going on here in America. And so protecting our borders, things like that, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think we need to have our borders protected and vet who's coming into this country.
If ever people needed to hear the unvarnished truth, it is now. There are some subjects that are not politically correct to talk about, but they're urgent. That's why I'm grateful for Endtime magazine. If you're not a subscriber, you're missing information that will impact your life. Endtime has a bi-monthly magazine that explains how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. You can get a 2-year subscription for only $29. You can also get a bulk subscription and pass them out to your church. We have gotten reports that Endtime magazine has caused spiritual awakenings in churches when they see the prophecies being fulfilled right now. You can start your own ministry and leave them in doctor's offices, libraries, laundromats. You never know if you might be responsible for saving someone who is searching for the unvarnished truth. That's what the magazine has done in many lives. Call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and get your subscription today.
So the Bible does talk about, it prophesies a world government. It's Revelation chapter 13. John saw a vision of a beast come up out of the sea that had the body of the leopard, the feet of the bear, the mouth of the lion, 10 horns of the 10-horn kingdom. It's the 7-headed 10-horn beast, and it is symbolic of a world governing body. Now that's the very short version of a long prophecy. And it would take me a while to explain that to you, but that's the short version. It's Revelation chapter 13, verse 1 and 2. And since 1945, it's this world government, or even before, the calls for a world government there have been efforts for a world governing body, really way back since the Tower of Babel. Then you've had different efforts towards a world government. The Babylonian Empire, the Greece, the Medes and the Persians, the Romans, the Holy Roman Empire, and then the final effort today, which will eventually be run by the European Union, and that is the United Nations on the earth. But then we've got to talk about this world governing body and America's exit from that. Well, because I'm really dealing with America today. What's going on the border, open borders, the nation state. I know there are people around the world that watch the program, and I talk to them all the time, but I'm going to deal with America just for the last portion of the program. It's very important. And America's exit from this world governing body. So from the signing of the United Nations Charter in 1945 until 2016, okay, the election in 2016, it was clear that the United States was in full compliance with this world governing system. Some presidents, they proceeded cautiously, while others blundered forward just drunken on the dreams of a fully functioning world governing system. But no matter who was in office, at the end of their administration, we still seem to be headed in the same direction. However, knowing the prophecies foretell America's absence from this world governing system and the rate that end time prophecy is being fulfilled, we knew that Washington's political atmosphere had to change, and change soon, because all the prophecies are converging at the same time. So the United States couldn't really just keep going along that path, because we know that it was going to pull out, according to Bible prophecy. Well, that brought us to, Irvin Baxter, myself, our research team, we watched this for years now. And that brought us to the election in 2016. The number one issue by far in that election, in the presidential campaign, really was globalism. Globalism, obviously, again, is the belief that the nation state is now obsolete. The world must move into a system of world government. And clearly stated, globalists believe that national borders, again, should be dissolved and a one world government should be instituted. So going into the election, we knew that Hillary Clinton advocated globalism. Her and Hill Clinton, I said Billary Clinton, think about that. Her and Bill Clinton were liberal internationalists. They believed in a world government, okay? Under the Obama administration, the U.S. was pursuing a policy of globalism. Lock, stock, and barrel. He signed us onto the Paris Climate Agreement, this global compact for migration, the Sustainable Development Goals. He was just whipping the pen and just signing up our sovereignty left and right. And that was President Obama. He was a big proponent of the emerging system of global governance. He threw America's borders wide open and refused to enforce our immigration laws. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton at that time promised to continue the globalist policies of Barack Obama. On the other hand, then presidential candidate Donald Trump, he strongly opposed globalization and open borders. He wanted to control our borders and restore American sovereignty. Obviously, he started calling for a wall to be built. We're going to protect our border. We're going to build a wall. And we will vet the people, and we will know who comes in. People can come into America, but they're going to come in legally. We're going to know what they believe. Why do you want to be here? Where'd you come from? Why did you have to leave? Are you running? Or did you escape prison somewhere and you're trying to get in here? What's going on? We want to know who's coming into our country. Try to get a visa in Israel today. They're going to know what size tennis shoes you wore when you were 1 year old. They want to know everything about you, because they don't want people coming into their country that's going to try to destroy them or do bad things or It's not going to happen. They built a wall, and it works. And so Donald Trump came along and said, I'm against the process of globalization. It's tearing our country apart, and we're going to build a wall, and we're going to protect our borders. So in talking about the world government, the promotion of a world government by many leaders has been promoted in our colleges, in the press, business circles, even throughout the religious institutions. Believe it or not, there are religious institutions that advocate this world governing system until it has gained virtual control over both the Republican and Democratic parties. And that's the reason no matter which party has been in power over the last 50 years prior to the Trump administration, this country, it seemed to just keep moving in the direction of global governance. Regardless, Republican or Democrat, think about it. The Bushes, Clinton, Obama, we were all moving in the same direction. And those who have been leading the United States steadily towards world government, they became known as the establishment, whether they were Democratic or Republican. You say, well, what's the establishment? Well, it's individuals, it's globalists that believe in this nation state. What do they believe? Those globalists believe the nation state has outlived its usefulness. National sovereignty has become the problem. So you wonder why these globalists want to throw the borders open. Because they believe that nation states have become an issue. They're one of the major conflicts on earth today that would stand in the way of this world governing body. They don't want nation states running themselves. They want to have a world government that runs all the nations of the earth. So if you got one nation out here by itself that says, no, we signed a Declaration of Independence, we're not going to be dependent on any other entity, then they try to crucify that, and that's what they're doing to Donald Trump. You wonder why the international community is screaming so much over his policies of wanting a wall, and the media has eviscerated him for 2 years now for wanting to build a wall and protect our borders. Think about that. All he wants to do is to protect the borders of the United States, and the liberal media has eviscerated him over that. And the globalist faction has eviscerated. In other words, think about it like this. Who in our country that loves this country, that would pledge allegiance to our republic, who would not want to protect our borders? I mean, let's just open it up real simply. Who would not want to protect our borders? People that believe in a world government. And so it's very important. They believe national sovereignty has become the problem, and that they want a system of world government is the solution. And, the reasoning really goes like this. History shows that sovereign nations inevitably, sooner or later, come into conflict. When those conflicts can't be worked out through diplomacy, nations result in war. And weapons of mass destruction have become so powerful that mankind now has the ability to destroy itself. And therefore, war must be eliminated, even outlawed. The only way to do that is to eliminate nations, disband national armies, and place all arms under a global authority, thus making war impossible. And when a dispute arises, those states, they can take their issues before the United Nations, presenting their cases before the UN Security Council. All nations would then agree to abide by the decisions of this global authority, this world government, thus eliminating war forever. Since all national armies will have been disbanded and the only army left would be under the control of this world government, all nations would have no choice but to submit their decisions to the world government. Well, there's only one uncomfortable question, though, that remains. What happens, all these plans, they sound pretty good until we ask this uncomfortable question. What happens if an Adolf Hitler should gain control over the army, the only army that's left? What if we all yield up our sovereignty to this world government, yield up our armies to them, and then somebody like Adolf Hitler gets control? The world's checks and balances have been destroyed. Consequently, the world would be subject to the worst tyranny history has ever known. And folks, let me tell you, that's exactly where this world's headed. You look at this and you understand the Bible. The Bible says there's going to be a world government, and it's not going to be Hitler that gets control of this. It's going to be the Antichrist. He's going to assume control of this world governing body, and he's going to dictate to people what to do. Now, do you want the United States being part of that? You say, well, no, absolutely not. Well, there are people in the United States that want that. And those same people are the ones that would say, we don't want a wall. We're promoting globalism. Now, I highly doubt that they would say, we want the Antichrist to take over and start, wreaking havoc on the world. I don't know if they would think about it like that. But at the end of the day, we understand the prophecies of the Bible, and I know that that's what's going to happen. So, do we want the United States having anything to do with this world government? Absolutely not. Do we want to have a nation state that we protect the borders of and protect our Judeo-Christian values in this nation? Absolutely. I wish Judeo-Christian values ruled the planet, and I promise you they will before very long. When God comes back, tears down human government and establishes His government here on the earth for a 1,000-year millennial reign, we will be running under Judeo-Christian values, I promise you. But until then, I consider the United States of America, even though we've made some grave mistakes along the way, I consider us a Judeo-Christian nation. Did we pull prayer out of the schools? Yeah. Did we pull Bible reading and the Ten Commandments out? Yeah. But I still pray, and I know a lot of people that still pray. So, in thinking about this as a whole, and looking at the process of globalization, this world government that's going to be established according to Bible prophecy, and our borders, this migrant caravan that's coming, I got to look at this as a whole and say, yes, we need to protect our borders. We need to stand behind President Trump to protect our borders. Let the people come in legally that are sincere and keep out the ones that are insincere. And let's protect what we have here in this nation. Judeo-Christian values that our forefathers used to establish this nation. And let's prepare ourselves for what's coming in just the near future. And that's the greatest time of revival this world's ever seen. So on today's program, I wanted to big picture what's going on our southern border. It's not just a migrant caravan. It's the process of globalization, world government in action.
This has been End of the Age, brought to you by the faithful partners of Endtime Ministries. If you're not currently a partner with Endtime Ministries, or if you would like more information, we invite you to call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or visit us online at endtime.com.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page.